Okay, so for this design, I've used a gel enamel or gel polish as my base in a light shade of blue. And I'm going to take an outline with a black acrylic paint, just a perimeter around the nail to frame it out. And it's a really cool effect. It looks really neat. This is going to have really clean lines. And how to achieve those clean lines is you want to make sure that you take your acrylic paint and water it down so that it's not too thick, and it's going to be a lot easier to work with that way. And you'll be able to achieve those really crisp, clean lines. Also really important is using a small detail brush with a fine point. So I'm going to start by outlining my perimeter. You can always clean up the line afterwards, so right now we're just outlining, and then we're going to fill in that whole area around. And because we're using a gel polish, top coat over the top, anything that looks a little streaky or your black maybe has a little bit of dimension in it where it's not so smooth will be smoothed out by the top coat. Okay, so just small little lines to fill in. You can also use a bigger brush if you're comfortable. I like to just stick with the small brush. It makes me feel comfortable, but I don't want to get it on the skin and then have to clean it up. It's the only reason I really like to just stick with a small brush. Now, if one side of your black edge is wider or thicker, I'm going to show you how in a minute when I clean up the perimeter or the inside of this the frame, how to even it all up and thin it and make a clean line in just a second here. Once it's dry, you're going to make sure you have a clean dampen dish. Take a little bit of pure acetone and a brush that has a nice point on it. A little bit heavier brush than your detail brush that we used to create that outline. And then I'm going to dry out the acetone off my brush. I just need a little bit. And I'm going to go around that edge and I'm going to clean up the line. So don't worry when you're drawing the line if it's not perfect, because this is where you're going to actually really clean up your work. Just make sure you don't go in with a really wet brush with acetone, otherwise it's going to bleed off your brush and you're going to make a mess. So make sure that you dry it out and then clean up the line. Okay, when I'm actually creating this line here, or the outer edge for my design, the outlining, I prefer to use acrylic paints rather than a gel polish or any other product, just for the mere fact that those are a little harder to work with. You're going to be able to get a much crisper line, and when using a gel polish, because if you use too much, it will bleed and it'll be hard to get that nice crisp line. Okay, you might have to work it a few times, and if you've got too much acetone, you're going to have to wipe over and just make sure that you clean up any excess black. So I'm creating my inner line to be more of an oval. Okay, you just have to work off a little bit more of the black in here to clean up my work. And the nice thing about working on top of a gel enamel for this is that as you're cleaning up the black, you're not removing any color because the color's already been cured. So if you were working on regular polish, this would be a difficult task right here, because you would then be interfering with your polish. Okay, so once you have that line nice and clean, make sure that any of the excess acetone has dried up before you finish your last step, which is to top coat the nail, and then you're done. And we are going to be using our gel top coat, so-called gel top coat, so make sure that that's dry and that the black's dry. With acrylic paint, you know that it's dry if it becomes like dull or satin finish looking. If it's shiny, that means it's still wet. And that just dries air dry. It doesn't need to go in light. Now I'm putting on our soak-off gel top coat, and I want to make sure it's nice and thin and even. Don't get it on the skin, and then always cap your free edge. And that's going to cure in an LED light for 30 seconds or in a UV light for 3 minutes. Okay? Now that the nail has cured, the top coat has cured, for 30 seconds, it just has a little sticky layer or your inhibition layer, and you're going to clean that off with your cleanser or your prep. And you're good to go. So you can see how cool that is. It's very off the fashion runways right now. So that's a really cool one, and just doing it on one nail as a standout is awesome, or doing it on all of them.